Hello and welcome back to my channel. My cat is currently scratching a yoga mat over there, so just gonna wait for him to be quiet. Alright, seems he's gotten it out of his system. You are watching True Summer Knits. I'm Maddie, also known as True Summer Knits, and today I'm back with my second video in this little series I'm doing, where I talk about my favorite pattern releases that came out in the last month. I did this last month for all the June patterns. The video did really well. A lot of people liked it. So I'm back this time for July patterns. All month I've been looking through the new Ravelry. I've been saving them all. And this month some really nice patterns have come out. Like some really interesting patterns have come out this month, and I'm really excited to share them with you. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with what is probably my favorite pattern release this month, and that is really hard to say because, like I said, a lot of really nice patterns came out this month. And I do try to highlight patterns people might not have seen, but this one has been on the Ravelry hot page every now and then this month, so you might have already seen it. But it's not like a big designer as far as I know, so I'm really excited to share it. This is the Hope top by Gudrun Fessel. I'm sorry if I probably totally butchered that. It looks like it's a German name, but it's this beautiful tank top. It's loose fitting. It's got these thick straps with a V-neck. But what really is nice about this pattern that really speaks to me is the little edging that they have all around the armholes and the neckline. They call it a cabled edging. It makes it look so beautiful and elegant. As soon as I saw this, I wanted to make one. The hem is just a rib hem. Although I'm calling it a cable edging, they describe it in the pattern as an integrated cable, which I'm assuming means that you knit it as you go and it's not something you pick up and do afterwards. I don't know how you would do that. So I'd be interested to knit this just to figure out how they integrated that edging into the pattern. It is worked top down. It looks like it's made like a lot of tank tops. You start at the straps, you knit the front flat, pick up for the back, knit the back flat, and then connect it in the round and knit the rest, and you finish it off with the ribbed hem. It is a fingering weight pattern. The designer recommends Pasquale Pinta. I've never used the Pasquale yarns, but it's a light fingering weight, 60% wool, 20% silk, and 20% cellulose. Specifically Rami, which isn't that nettle fiber or something? So that sounds like a really interesting yarn. I wonder if there's anywhere here I can get Pasquale. I've never looked, but that would be a really interesting yarn to try. I like the 40% blend of the silk and the cellulose. I think it's an interesting summer yarn. It comes in sizes extra small to 3XL, so that's a total of 7 sizes. It's available in English and German. She recommends different needle sizes for different yarns, but it's either knitted mostly on 3.5mm needles or 3mm needles, depending on whichever yarn you choose, or I guess just whatever gauge you get. It seems like a really simple design. This might be an interesting design to choose if you've never done cables, because most of it's just stockinette, but you get to practice that cable edging, and I guess if you really suck at it, you could just do something else and not do the cables. So it would be a good way to dip your feet in, test the waters, you know what I mean? I'm obsessed with the Hope top. I'm going to knit it at some point. I don't know if it'll be this year, because summer's kind of coming to, well, it's not coming to an end in Mississippi, but the knitting time I have left is coming to an end somewhat, because I've got other things going on and my own designs I'm working on. So I don't know if this is going to get knit this summer, but it's going to get knit sometime from now to the day that I die. So it's in there, it's penciled in. We're going to get there. The next one is almost sort of a similar design, and you'll see what I mean, but this is probably one of my other favorites. And this is the Cleo top by Simone Ryan. As soon as I saw this top, I was obsessed. I love it. It's beautiful. My only gripe is that it's a DK weight knit and not a fingering weight knit. But it is just really gorgeous. It's similar in the fact that it's got the thick straps up at the shoulder. It's got the sort of V-neck. It's kind of like a rounded V-neck. And it looks like she includes options in the pattern to do a different neckline. Oh yeah, so you've got 3 different neckline options. So you can do a straight V-neck, an O-neck, or a U-neck. And they've got different samples with different versions of the neckline, so I'll include some of the tester photos while I'm talking about it. It looks like all the edges are folded. It doesn't specifically say, but from reading the description, Noelle, come sit. Noelle, come sit in your seat. Gotta get her comfy. So from what I can see, it's knit top down. You start with the back, and the back is shaped with short rows. Then you pick up stitches at the shoulders to start working the front, which I'm imagining is just a lot of knitting back and forth depending on the neckline you choose. And then once you are done with the front and the back panels, you join in the round, and the rest is done in stockinette. The gauge of this pattern is 20 stitches by 30 rows in just simple stockinette. And the yarns she recommends are Santa's Garn Line, and Drop Spell. So those are both pretty easily accessible yarns if you're interested in knitting this pattern. I don't think I will end up knitting it just because a DK weight camisole, I don't like those, not a big fan. But the design is beautiful, and if you live in a climate where you can knit this, please knit this on my behalf. What are you doing in there? Cherish. I left the door open this time for filming, and all the animals are just circulating in here, even though they never want anything to do with this room. The last couple times I've filmed, I've closed the door because they will make noises, but this time I'm trying it out because it makes me sad when they sit outside the door, wait for me to finish. It's just kind of depressing. But if you hear, that sneeze was my cat Cherish, so if you hear little noises, it's just one of my 4 animals. Just a heads up. But back to the Cleo top. This is knit on 4mm and 3.5mm needles. It doesn't say how many sizes it includes, but it says it goes from a bust circumference of 29.5 to 63 centimeters, so a pretty big size range. Oh, it does say how many sizes. Oh wow, okay. Let me count. There's a lot of sizes. There are 18 sizes, so I guess every size is just very specific. So I guess you could do some math and you could find your exact bust circumference and just work from there. That's what it seems like it's designed for. My favorite version of this top is definitely the V-neck version. I just feel like it stands out the most. It looks really chic and cool. I would wonder if maybe I could turn it into an autumn type top by knitting it in a DK weight wool. Or right now I'm working on a autumn a nice elegant top that's meant to be worn in slightly colder weather, and it's like a sleeveless sweater, but it's worked in cashmere yarn, or it's supposed to be a very lightweight sport weight fuzzy wool yarn, and I feel like that maybe could be something I could modify with this pattern to make it a little more autumnal, but other than that, I don't think it would be a top I could wear in the summer. But I really like the V-neck version of this pattern, so that might be something I consider to make this top wearable for me. The next top is The City. Doesn't say top, just The City by Tori Knits NYC. This is kind of like a halter neck style top. The first time I saw it, I thought it was kind of boat neck, but it seems a little bit more halter neck. It really curves in here, and it's got the thin straps that are a little longer than I feel like you would see in a boat neck. It's a negative ease top. It is knitted in a fingering weight yarn. It is super beautiful. I feel like working ribbing on a camisole can take away from the summery look if you're not careful, and I feel like she has really balanced the delicateness of the ribbed edges to make them not seem so much like this is a bulky camisole that you're wearing in the summer. It still seems really thin, really just plain looking, and I really like this design. This is another one I would knit if I thought I had the time for the rest of the summer. It's a really beautiful top. The gauge is 24 stitches by 32 rows, which is a pretty open gauge for a fingering weight in my experience. I don't know if maybe she knit this in a cotton yarn and it grows. She knit this in Pika Pika from Moondrake Co., which also is another 60% wool, 20% silk, 20% cellulose blend. So I don't know if that yarn tends to grow, but she said the yarn page says the recommended gauge for that yarn is 28 stitches. So it's possible that she is just knitting this top at a very loose gauge. So if you're not into that loose gauge, this is a really cute top, but you might not want to consider it. I'm personally not a fan of looser gauges. If I really wanted to knit this top, I would do the math to be able to work it in a tighter gauge. It's worked top down, and I think part of the reason the ribbing looks so clean is because it's twisted rib. I love twisted rib. I will always knit twisted rib. I think it looks amazing. And it's knit top down, you work it seamlessly in the round, and it looks like she's actually working on a dress version, which I think will look pretty interesting. There are 9 sizes to fit a finished bust circumference of 28 to 60 inches. And it looks like you can kind of experiment with the amount of ease that you want. She says you can go anywhere from -4 to 0 inches of negative ease, just depending on how tight fitting you want your top to be. Oh, and she does knit these on 3.5 millimeter needles, which again is a big needle for fingering weight yarn, so that must be how she gets such a loose gauge. This next top I want to talk about is the Simple Summer Top by Cleo Smith. I've never heard of this designer, so I don't know, again, if I'm saying that name right, but this is a really interesting pattern. One thing to note, first of all, it is designed to be knit in 4 different gauges, so it looks like she's got the numbers either to knit a fingering weight, sport weight, DK, or even a worsted weight. It's just this really cool, it's sort of like somewhere between a tee and a camisole. Like it kind of has more like those little cap sleeves that just go over your shoulders. And it's got this band of garter stitch all around the top of the neck and over to the shoulders. It's like another garter stitch rib going down the edge of the sleeve. It's kind of like square shaped and sort of got like a boat neck. Sort of a boat neck, more like just literally a slit in the neck, like it just goes straight across. It's like very square in shape. Some of the yarns she recommends are Sanus Garn Line, the Knitting for Pure Silk. Obviously, there are a lot of yarns you could use with this, considering it comes in all those different gauges. And this top is knitted from the bottom up. Unlike the other tops I've talked about, you start with the hem, you knit up in the round, looks like it's just stockinette, there's no shaping or anything. And then once you reach the top, you split for the front and back, knit the front, knit the back, and connect them using a 3-needle bind-off. I've never done this with a 3-needle bind-off, but she does say that instructions are included, so at least you don't have to go look for another video or something if you buy the pattern. It's meant to have around 2.5 to 4.5 inches of positive ease, so it's not like too oversized, but it's not like tight-fitting or close-fitting either. And if I didn't mention, it does come in sizes small to 4XL. So this next top I'm going to talk about is actually a sort of sequel to a top I've talked about on here before. This is the Floor Tee by Brianna Mason. I've talked before about the Floor Cami, which is a really beautiful, like, spaghetti-strapped V-neck camisole with these little lace and pointe-tail patterns on it. And this is a t-shirt version of that. So if you like that pattern, but you didn't really, or you like the design on it, but you didn't like the whole V-neck camisole thing, if this is more wearable for you, then you have that option now. This is a fingering weight pattern. The gauge is 30 stitches by 40 rows in the lace stitch pattern. And she uses Suec Linea, which is a cotton cellulose linen blend. I think you could just use like Tin Line or Pure Silk or something like that. One of those plant fiber sort of like yarns. Different brands make different ones, so whatever's easiest for you to get. It comes in 9 sizes from extra small to 5XL. And it's knit on 2.5 millimeter needles, so it's a pretty tight gauge, or it might take a while because you're using such tiny needles, but I personally, if you watch my videos, you know I love tiny yarn and tiny needles, so this sounds fun to me, but if that's not your thing, you might just want to avoid this. This is knit bottom up, again, like the last one. You knit it in the round using an Italian cast on to start, and there's a little bit of ribbing. You just work that pattern all the way around until you reach the armholes. It doesn't look like there's any waist shaping or anything, so it's just knitting the lace pattern straight in the round for like a while, I'm guessing. Probably would take a while. Then you split the front and the back, you work one shoulder at a time, and then you seam the front and the back together, and then you go pick up around each armhole to create the sleeves, and it looks like she says you work short rows to help shape the sleeves. I would love to see how that works, because the sleeves are also in pattern. I've never thought about doing, obviously it's something you can do, but I've never done any kind of pattern where you work short rows like in a certain pattern. I've only ever done it in stockinette. So that would be an interesting technique to learn, to try to do stockinette, or to try to do short rows in a lace pattern. That's kind of neat. This is a negative ease design. It's meant to have -2 to -3 inches of negative ease. I guess I said negative a lot there. You can take out one wherever you choose. She does make it very clear that this pattern is not meant to be beginner friendly. I could have told you that, but it looks like once you get going, it seems like it'd be a pretty simple lace repeat. So this is really beautiful, and I kind of like it more than the fleur cami. I feel like I might get more of like a lace tee. I don't know, so I might knit this at some point. It's really cute. And a tee can kind of be worn all year round too, in my opinion, in my weather. I'm going to delete this entire part because I just realized this entire pattern is in German, and I didn't notice that, so I don't speak German. So some of the next patterns I'm going to be talking about are a little bit less summery, but this one I still feel can be a summer top. This is the Bloomfield top by Knitonomy. I think I mentioned a couple of her patterns in my last roundup video. This is a really cool cabled, like, vest style top. She has it labeled as a sleeveless top, and I mean it is, but I feel like something about the cables and the ribbing and like the thicker straps make it more of like a sweater vest to me than like a camisole type top. You know what I mean? But this is a fingering weight pattern. The gauge is 30 stitches by 41 rows. I'm assuming that is in the cable pattern, but she doesn't actually specify. And this is knit on 3.25 millimeter needles. The recommended yarn that she uses is Lamana Como Cashmere, which is a very expensive yarn, so I wouldn't use that probably. But it is a 70% merino wool and 30% cashmere yarn. And the funny thing is, this is apparently a DK weight yarn, and she labels it as a fingering and gets 30 stitches per inch. So maybe it's a thin DK? I don't know. Some yarns are labeled as one thing and actually are another. So it could be a case of that, but I've never seen this yarn, so I would probably take some consideration if you're planning on subbing out this yarn for something else to try to make sure that whatever you pick is actually going to work for this pattern. It looks like another yarn that she recommends is Santa's Garden Sunday, so there you go. You could use that one instead, which is much cheaper, I'm sure. It comes in 10 sizes, and you're meant to wear it with 0 to 5 centimeters of positive ease, which I think is like 2 inches of positive ease. I'm not a centimeters girly. I know a lot of you guys are, and I'm trying to be more open-minded about centimeters and stuff, but I am a dirty American, so that's kind of what I like to use. It is knit top down. You start with the shoulders, you shape the shoulders with like the shoulder slant with German short rows. You work the shoulders separately flat at first, and then you join them by casting on stitches at the neckline, I'm assuming is what she means by center front. You join them at the underarms, you knit the rest in the round, and then you pick up for the edges to knit the rib. And she says the rib is half twisted rib, so I'm guessing you twist and knit stitches. I love twisted rib. I bet that will look really nice. I just think this is a really cute cabled top. It's not very summery to me, but I still really like it. I feel like if you made it like a little more, maybe if you made it like cropped, you could kind of get like a summery, like preppy summery look, you know? Or you could knit it longer. I almost would want to consider sizing down for this because I feel like it looks a little loose in her samples, and I feel like I would feel a little more comfortable in this kind of top. It was a little tighter fitting, but that's just me personally. But I really like Knitonomy's designs, and this is her newest one, and it's beautiful. The sample picture, it looks like she knit a matching skirt, which she is going to come out with at some point, and it is just so cute. I don't know if I have the temperament to knit a matching maxi length skirt and top set, but she did it, and she looks amazing. I don't think I could even pull it off if I wanted to, but it's really admirable that she did that and she's releasing these. The next pattern we're going to talk about is the Ket. I don't know if it's supposed to be Ket T, we're just going to call it that, by, hold on, let's practice. Rui Yamamuro. That's what I think it is. It is a sport weight tee. It's got a really interesting fit. I really like it. It's like almost tighter around the shoulders, but then kind of looser. I don't know if it doesn't feel like I'm describing it right. It just has these slanted, tight sleeves, this tiny V-neck, and it's just really interesting shape. I honestly don't even know how to describe it. I feel like this is kind of a reason why I picked it, because I feel like it's pretty unique in terms of fit and shape, but the designer recommends you use Pascal Sole, which is a sport weight, 90% cotton, 10% cashmere yarn. And the needles she recommends are 3.5 millimeter needles and 2.75 millimeter needles. Apparently, Ket means necklace in German, so it's an interesting linguistics lesson. It looks like you knit the upper back panel first, you pick up at the shoulders to start knitting the front, join them in the round, knit to the bottom. She talks about forming the underarm slope, which I feel like is going to create that sort of baggy, like, shape that you have with this top, which I think is something that I find really interesting. I feel like that is not a shape that would look good on everybody. Like, I feel like you have to have, like, a certain look to make that work, and I don't know if I have that look, but it looks really great on her or the model or whoever is wearing it in the photo. You gradually taper in the body as you knit it down. So again, that's contributing to that interesting shape this design has. It's got 9 sizes, and the finished measurements range from 36 inches to 63.5 inches. And for reference, it looks like that finished measurement includes a assumed positive ease of 4 to 7.5 inches. So it's a lot of positive ease. The next pattern we're going to talk about is a pattern, another interesting shaped pattern. This is the Our Collar Tee by Soup Knits. She has different samples in this pattern. One that the main photo is, the main photo shows one with short sleeves, but what personally I feel like is really nice is the one with slightly longer sleeves. And when you see it on a person, you realize that short sleeves actually comes down to like here, because it's like the shoulders kind of just really go on, and even though they look short when you look at them just because of the shape, they really do fall down to about the person's elbow in the photo. But even then, she knit a sample where they come more down to here, and I feel like it looks so like comfy and oversized. And also, personally, it's been seeming like polo collars is like a trend these days, or it's becoming one, and I feel like this kind of perfectly encapsulates how I feel about the polo trend. Like, I definitely feel like my favorite polo designs are sort of oversized and more comfy, because to me it reminds me of like wearing like your boyfriend's like shirt or something. It's like a little big and it's just like really cute. I like that more than I like some of the tighter fitting polo tops, although I have seen some tight fitting polo tops recently that have kind of made me change my mind about that. But so far, this is a really good example of that polo trend, and I like it a lot. This is a worsted weight yarn pattern, so this is not summery. This just happens to have come out in the summer. But these are just July pattern releases. This is not a summer pattern roundup, so it's okay. She knit this in Retrosaria Mungo, which is a worsted weight, 50% cotton, 50% wool yarn. When you look at her sample, it almost has this like roughness to it, but it's almost like I know it's not a boucle yarn, but it sort of reminds me of like the texture of like boucle or like Sherpa or something, at least when you look at it in her photos. And I don't always like yarns that kind of have texture like that, but I feel like it really works for this pattern. Again, it works for like the cozy, like oversized, comfy fit top. And I did say worsted, but it looks like she also includes instructions for a 21 stitch gauge, so you could knit this with like a DK weight yarn if you preferred that. This comes in 10 sizes from 2XS to 5XL. It's worked top down. You work the collar in 2x2 ribbing, and then the yoke is worked with raglan increases, which you can see pretty clearly. You separate for sleeves, you work the rest of the body in the round, and then you work the sleeves in the round, and you finish the little front placket at the front. And that's it. I feel like this is the perfect top to like have to like work in your house or like get stuff done and be comfy and cozy. I feel like if I knit this, I feel like these more casual things, I almost would want to knit in something somewhat washable, like maybe like a superwash wool, just because I feel like if I'm wearing something casual and comfy like that, I am more likely to be doing things that I might get something on it, you know what I mean? So I might knit this later this year and look for like a superwash or maybe even a superwash wool cotton blend. I feel like that would be an interesting choice for this. And I would probably knit it the DK version, just because if I can knit it in a thinner gauge, I will. That's just me. We have one more tee pattern before I talk about a couple other sweatery types. And this is, I debated whether or not I should include this only because in my summer capsule wardrobe, I included two very similar tee patterns by the same designer. But she released another tee pattern in July. It's another very simple fitted tee. I feel like she makes really good ones. And just because I talked about them, just because I talked about similar designs in my last video, doesn't mean this is not a great July pattern release. So I'm going to talk about it anyway. This is the Calm Down Tee by Lily Kate France. She's a great designer. Not everything she designs is my style, but I really appreciate her as a designer. I have been watching her YouTube videos a lot recently because I've been getting into design myself. And she talks a lot about the design process and things like that. So if you're interested in that, I would just check out her channel before even thinking about her patterns. I feel like she really gives a lot of useful advice for people who want to get into design on her channel. But for the tee pattern, this is a saddle shoulder tee. It looks like some of her samples have a more relaxed fit around the shoulders and sleeves, and some of them have a tighter fit. And I think that's because she has optional short row shaping to get a more tailored fit, or you can not do those for the more relaxed fit. It's designed to fit bust circumferences from 28 to 62 inches. She also has options for bust darts, so this is a really versatile pattern that you can sort of mix and match or play with to get the fit that you want, which is another thing I really like about her designs. Kind of like the Cleo. I haven't knit any of her designs, but I do appreciate a designer that understands that a pattern doesn't have to be the be-all end-all of what you create, and that people might want to make modifications, and they are there to help you make them. I like that about designers who do things like that. This is knit on 4mm and 3.5mm needles. It's knit in the round from the top down. Like I said, it's saddle shoulder. And the gauge is 21 stitches by 28 rows, so a very classic DK weight gauge. Okay, so I have 3 more garments I want to talk about, and they are all sweaters. So the first one I want to talk about is the Gaia Sweater by Knit Studio. And if you see this design, it might look very familiar to you, and it looked very familiar to me. It is very similar to the Zipper Sweater by Petite Knit. She's got the different versions with the different weights. And even though that is a very popular sweater, and I'm sure a lot more people would just choose to knit that from a designer they know, I feel like if you like that fit and you want to look at variations of it just to see which one you prefer, I feel like this is a really interesting option as another option you could choose instead of the Zipper Sweater. One of the main differences is that the Zipper Sweater from Petite Knit is a raglan sleeve construction. This one is more of a saddle set-in sleeve with some raglan increases at the bottom, and I feel like this is going to give you a more tight fit. Not necessarily tight as in a lot of negative ease, just tight as in it follows the lines of your body more, in my opinion. And that's because I feel like raglan sleeve constructions don't usually give you the best fit around the shoulders, which doesn't mean they're bad. It just means it's not gonna follow. It's not going to follow the shape of your arms as much, if that makes sense. So I feel like that could be, if you want to try out a different construction than raglan for a sweater like that, this would be a good alternative. It has an 18 stitch gauge. She recommends knitting this with a light fingering weight and a mohair held together. So it's got a bit of a looser gauge since you're going to get 18 stitches with that. She personally knit hers in mohair by Canard's brushed lace and Santa's Garden Tib Pier Get. She knits this with 4mm needles, and also 3 and 3.5, I'm guessing for some finishing details. But unfortunately, it does only come from size extra small to 2XL. But I just wanted to talk about this because I also really like the fact that I don't always like ribbing. I don't know why I don't always like ribbing. I feel like It looks really good in photos, but then in real life, I feel like it's hard to get ribbing to look very neat. So she actually includes folded hems for everything instead of ribbing, which I really like the look of. So I feel like this might give you a slightly more feminine fit if that's what you're looking for because of the more tailored shoulders. The folded hems just look really neat. And I really like this. Personally, I think I kind of like this more than the zipper sweater, but I mean, this is a new pattern that I don't think anyone has really seen, so I just wanted to put this out there. If you like the look of the zipper sweater and you want an alternative, check out the Gaia Sweater by Knit Studio. This next sweater I'm obsessed with. I was just talking about how I feel like rib can look very not neat, which is one reason I'd be concerned about knitting a 2x2 rib top. But this is the Alva Genserin by Liv Bjorholm. It's this really cool 2x2 rib with like sort of like a mock neck turtleneck situation. And then the sleeves, it looks like you work increases and they kind of have like a bell sleeve type construction. It's just really beautiful and like really like elegant. I don't know. I really feel like we need to bring back more fitted sweaters. I feel like in the knitting community, the trend for a while has been like oversized, but you know, I really enjoy the look of like fitted sweaters, and I feel like those should be cool again. So this is really cool. It's like mostly fitted. It's knitted top down with raglan construction, and again 2x2 rib. She says it's meant to be slightly cropped, so it's about to hit right about your hips. Other things about this sweater, the gauge is 28 stitches by 28 rows. She knit the original in drops Puna, and she said you could add a mohair or something if you want to make it a little denser. It comes from the sizes extra small to 2XL. She says there is a 3XL included in the pattern, but that it's still being tested, so she can't guarantee that it's a good fit or anything. So if you want to try that size, you'll have to, I guess, knit it at your own risk until it's been finished test knitting. And she did knit this sweater on 4mm needles and 3.5mm needles. The next sweater is one you might have heard of if you are into the knitting YouTube scene. This is the Winnie Sweater by Woozy by Celine. This is her first design. It's a really cute stockinette sweater she has this rolled neck sort of, or funnel neck sort of look. It's not ribbed, it's all done in stockinette. She has some kind of technique where it prevents the stockinette from rolling. It's an Aran weight sweater. The gauge is 16 stitches by 28 rows. It comes in the sizes extra small to 4XL, and it's meant to have about 6 inches of positive ease. But for most of the samples, I feel like they look more close fitting than that. So I guess it would depend on what size you knit, but it doesn't look like a very oversized garment to me. It looks pretty close fitting according to most of the samples. Some of the samples look a little bigger, but I think it just depends on what size you knit, how tight you want it to be. She knit her sample in Isager Soft, and she lists some other yarns that you could use, including Santa's Garden Brushed Alpaca and Drops Air. But this is a really nice design. It's got kind of the flared out sleeves, similar to the last sweater, but obviously this one is just stockinette. I love her channel. I like this design. I'm excited to see what other designs she comes out with in the future. But yeah, if you like this design and you want to support a new designer, check this one out. It's also a saddle shoulder raglan combo sort of thing. She doesn't go too in detail about how she constructs it, but I am looking at the tags to try to piece together what the construction is. It's knit top down in the round. It's knit seamlessly, so it's all in one piece, and there are short rows incorporated into the construction. I'm guessing in the back neck. I'm not really sure, but that is the basics of how this sweater is constructed. And it is knit on 5.5mm needles. And the last item that I'm going to talk about today is by a slightly bigger designer, so you probably have heard of her or seen this design, but I really like this sweater. It's another textured yarn pattern, which I haven't historically been into, but clearly this month I'm appreciating it a little more. This is the Pascal Sweater, or Pascal Sweater by Gregoria Fibers. She described it as a summer sweater, I could never wear this in the summer, but it's a cute sweater. She knit this out of Cotton Waves by Gepard, which I think is sort of kind of like a cotton boucle type yarn. What I find really interesting about this sweater is the line of, I don't know if it's cables or whatever kind of texture she uses to create this line of this stitch pattern across the neck and down the shoulders. The yarn obviously doesn't make it very easy to tell what stitches are being used, so I can't tell if it's cables or knits and purls, but it looks really good. I would really like to see it in a non-textured yarn, just so if you wanted to sub it, you could see what you're in for, but it looks really nice in her sample. It's a drop shoulder sweater. It's meant to be oversized. She only includes the info about the yarn that she used, but the gauge is 17 stitches by 22 rows, so I want to say that's like kind of like a worsted Aran weight, somewhere around there, depending on how dense I guess you want the fabric to be. And she knitted on 5mm needles. It comes in 8 sizes, ranging from fitting a 31.5-inch bust to a 55-inch bust. Those aren't the finished measurements, those are just what the sweater is designed to fit a person of that size. It's very oversized. It looks like it's got, I mean, at least the smallest size seems to have about 10 inches of positive ease according to her finished measurements, but she says the intended ease is 8.75 to 9.75 inches of positive ease. But that seems to vary a little wildly depending on what your actual bust measurement is, so I would take a look at the finished measurements when you're picking your size for this sweater especially. It's worked from the top down. The upper body is shaped using short rows, and then she does specify the neckline is picked up here to attach the decorative cable, so it is a cable. It's really hard to see what it would look like knit in a different yarn, but maybe someone who's test knitted it has knit it in a different yarn. I would be interested in seeing that because it's really hard to tell. It just looks maybe like a simple cable, but you really cannot tell on that yarn that she used. And then you also just pick up and you knit the sleeves all the way down in the round. I feel weird kind of sticking with this sort of odd number, but that was 13 patterns that I selected for today's roundup. Obviously I can't talk about every single pattern that came out this month. There were a lot of great ones, but these are the ones that really stuck out to me and I wanted to highlight. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I showed you some interesting patterns that came out this month for some interesting designers. And I am really grateful that you watched this. So I will be back next week with my podcast episode. If you applied to test knit my design in the last episode, I am going to be messaging testers this weekend. And if you do want to test knit and you want to knit the sizes 4 or 5XL, let me know because I'm still looking for testers in that size. But please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like, and I will see you guys next week with another video. Bye.